Welcome in to the Toyota Lounge for the DNVR Avalanche Podcast, powered by your Front Range Toyota dealerships. We got Eric and Rudo coming to you live on a Thursday in the middle of August. We figured let's talk a little bit of Stanley Cup champions here, or more specifically, over the last 10 years, which Stanley Cup champions have been fun and which Stanley Cup champions were extremely boring, not worth watching, complete slack. I don't know. I have no other adjectives for lame Stanley Cup champions. Just before we dive in, the official potential teams we have to pick from here. Starting in 2015, you have the Chicago Blackhawks. Then you have the Pittsburgh Penguins twice in 2016 and 2017. The Capitals in 2018. St. Louis in 2019. Tampa Bay in 20 and 21. The Avs in 22. Vegas in 23. And now Florida, this most recent Cup champion. It's an interesting category for me because obviously if you root for the team that wins the Stanley Cup, that's the one you're going to rank as number one. Like, your team won the cup, nothing else matters. Who cares? It's the best. But for people that maybe don't root for that specific team or weren't a fan of that particular Stanley Cup matchup, that's where this thing gets a lot more interesting. So obviously there's a little bit of bias here. The funnest one for me was the Avs Cup in 22 by a clear margin. Is that true of you as well, Eric?
I mean, I'm assuming, right? I mean, it's got to be one, right? I mean, it has to be. It has to be. I mean, yeah, is that biased? I mean,
yeah, it is for sure. It is, but we're an Avalanche podcast, so deal with it.
That's CHGO would say, "Oh, the Chicago." I mean, no crap. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, unless you're unless secretly, Rudo, you're a diehard LA Kings fan. You know what I mean? Like,
I
then
am
you'd be
not.
Like, oh, yeah, the LA Kings. Exactly. So, so you know what I mean. So I think it has to be that one. I mean, it is. Plus, it's an incredible story too when you think about it, right? Are we diving in right away on that one, or do you want? Are we just diving into this one?
Yeah, I think everyone knows that it's number one for us, so let's just jump into it.
And for me, and I'll tell you why it's number one, just because, you just said it. We're all Avalanche fans. We cover the Avalanche. This is the Avalanche Podcast, DNVR Avalanche Podcast. Yes, for all those reasons, and for me, it's a little personal to his family. You know what I mean? I can tell you that it's great. It's great to see. There's such a unbelievable franchise the first 10, 12 years of the existence of the Avalanche. And as we all know, it hit a little bit of a dip, which is normal. But then it hit that really big freaking dip, right? The 48-point season. We don't need to go back to that. And that's why it makes it such a remarkable story. You know what I mean? And then the baton is passed, and you now have the iconic franchise guy, Joe Sakic. And when you say Avalanche, you think Joe Sakic. It should be the answer, right? Player management. All of a sudden, he takes over. You know what I mean? And of course, he took over before that. But I'm saying, you just bring it back to a respectable level after the 48-point season, and then you're seeing some hope and obviously the draft picks and obviously some luck, as we all know. When I say luck, I mean all the respect in the world. Like, you lose the lottery, which is bad luck, but then you end up with the 4th overall, which makes you pick Makar, right? Where some people could have picked him at 1, as we all heard. Some people have said, like, was it Bobby Clark that said they were going to take Makar at 1 and all that kind of stuff, right? You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that they didn't do their homework on Makar, but we're saying that out of their bad luck, some good luck came apart. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And you got Mikko and you got Nate. Those are results of bad years. And you go back to Gabe, same thing, results of bad years. 2nd overall, but obviously didn't really make the turn with Patty there behind the bench and that kind of core there. And then they trade Dutchie and then they go, and then they have the elements to go and win, and then they add the Kadris and Burakovsky, and they make the trade for Kemper, and next thing you know, they trade for Lehkonen at the trade deadline, and I don't forget about Val, right? The addition. So all of a sudden, you got an unbelievable recipe. You're ready to go win, and then they put it all together. They just steamrolled everybody that year. I mean, it was not. I mean, it's not even close. Like it was scary. As much as you're nervous in games and you're excited, at the end of the day, they freaking steamrolled everyone. And if you're an Avalanche fan, of course that's number one. If you're a hockey fan, it's got to be close to one because it's one of the most dominant ones in the last 10 years where you're like, my God, this team's not going to lose. And I remember talking to Wayne, against Edmonton, and I think I've told you that before. And it's like, hey, I said, you guys are coming back. Remember TNT and Rick Togg? Hey, I'll go to dinner next week when you guys come back for Game 5. And he's like, there won't be a Game 5. This is done in 4. Like everyone was like, they're going to steamroll everybody. You know what I mean? And then, they were a machine. It was so fun to watch, and it was so. And I know I saw the little like clips of you guys, you and AJ, and I don't remember who else was there, but you guys just going bananas that night, and you know what I mean? Like, how awesome is that? You know what I mean? After. And it's not just for the players. It's for management. It's for families. It's for fans. It's for media. It's an unbelievable feeling. It's an unbelievable feeling because somewhere, somehow, you are part of it. And, of course, it's got to be number one when you guys are putting in all that work and all the fans are putting all that work and their hard-earned money, too, to attend games and to support the team. So, unbelievable run. 22's got to be number one.
It's... The other thing of it, too, is it was the first full season back, right? The last 2 years were the pandemic shortened one, particularly. The year before was that weird 56-game, weird divisions thing where it was still hockey, but it just felt weird, right? Like, Montreal ended up going on a cup run, and that finals was not all that interesting, which I'm sure we'll get to. And then the Avs played the full season, were the best team, ended up winning the thing, stopped the Tampa three-peat. I think there's a lot of interesting storylines beyond just our obvious Avs bias there that do make it more fun, more interesting. But our bias is certainly what puts it up there at number one. So that with the bias part of the show out of the way, I want to flip it on its head. Which of these was the least interesting cup run?
I think you just talked about it right there, and this is going to sound harsh. This is going to sound mean, and if there's Tampa Bay fans listening, like I look back, and us as hockey fans, I'm talking on behalf of anyone that's on the chat or ever watches hockey or NHL fans, like you just said it. They were just unprecedented, like not normal times. It was unprecedented. Like no one. I remember sitting at Pepsi Center. Sorry. Oh yeah, it was. Was it called Pepsi Center or Ball Arena at that time?
I think
the lockout.
It was still Pepsi until 22.
It was still Pepsi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was still Pepsi. Yeah. So just sitting there, and I remember against the Rangers was a late game, and everyone was talking about all that stuff after the first period. That
because the NBA just shut down. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. And it was like, and I remember packing my stuff. I left. My kids read the game, so I was like, guys, just get out of here. This is kind of weird, you know what I mean? And we left, and obviously never would be seen for a while, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And me working for Calgary at that time, not even being able to cross the border for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Never went in the office. It was crazy. But so no offense, I'm going to go with that, the bubble, you know what I mean? Like just not because I put an asterisk to it. I don't. Somewhere, somehow, it's probably the toughest cup to win mentally. You know what I mean? Like mentally. I've heard stories. I've heard a lot of guys talk about being in the bubble. It was not easy. It was tough. And, you got to give them their props for that. You know what I mean? Because they're the ones that came out of it. And I don't give an asterisk to it, but it's still weird and it's still bizarre. You know what I mean? And those divisions and or whatever it was, right? It just didn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like, it just didn't make sense. And for me, that's why again, I'm not taking anything away from Tampa. I mean, these guys from Julian Brisebois to John Cooper to the players to, the Stamkos. Remember that? He scores that goal, plays one shift. You know what I mean? Like he just kind of, there's some great stories. I just for some reason it's like, if you talk about it 20 years from now, you'd be like, what was that? And it's like, oh, just COVID. Oh, Jesus. You know what I mean? Like you're talking to new fans 20 years from now, they'll be like, oh, wow, what was it like? And it's just a weird feeling. And it's no disrespect to the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I'm going to go with that one just because of it's so weird.
So I actually don't mind the bubble one. I thought the bubble one was fairly entertaining just because we had gone 6 months or whatever it was without hockey, and then you get hockey in August, which is a little bit unique. And I'm the weird person that actually really loved the no crowd in the stands because you could hear all of the in-game action on the TV, and that was super cool. So I like that, but I know I'm the weirdo there. But the actual in-bubble one, I did not mind. I thought that was entertaining hockey. I thought it was an interesting and unique perspective. The following year, the one where they played Montreal in the shortened year, that one sucked. That one was not interesting at all. Montreal never should have been there. They weren't even supposed to be in the playoffs if there was regular divisions. And there was no doubt who was going to win that series from the beginning. Everybody knew Tampa was going back-to-back at that point. So that one, I'm with you, is not very interesting. I don't have it ranked as my worst, but it's probably number 9 as for that Tampa-Montreal series in 2021. It just... There was no interesting storylines to me there. It was pretty straightforward.
You're right, and I mixed the two of them just because, and that's why I say they deserve their cups, Tampa. I don't want anyone to get back and shatter. No, I am not saying that. It was just so messed up, and you're right. It's probably like the Montreal. Maybe I'll have to slide number 9, with you, the Montreal one, just because that was such a weird thing too. And I remember sitting in my house and watching games and trying to understand like those rounds and the Canadian division. It was just surreal and it didn't make sense. And I was excited like you were. I was excited there was hockey. But you're right. I'm going to take out my last answer. I'm going to go back with you. You're right. I hated that one more than the bubble one. You know what I mean? Because the bubble, I think, was the excitement of doing something, which was awesome.
Not just no sports, yeah.
Yeah, and then this one was, wow, this is just absolute bizarre. You know what I mean? And it didn't make sense. And like you said, Montreal, again, they shouldn't have been there, and that's okay. They were there, so give them their props too. I'm not taking anything away. It just didn't make any sense that that's what your final is. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was surreal. But I think those two are cropped in together, and they got to be toward the bottom, 100%.
Definitely in with that take. Doesn't cover my most boring one, but I don't know. I see in the Toyota chat we have a couple of different, maybe a little bit biased choices for the worst one, including St. Louis and Vegas, but neither of those are my worst one. Not that I loved either of those ones, but not my worst one, which we will get to in just a minute here. But first, if you need to hire, you need Indeed. Make sure if you're looking to fill positions, you get in with Indeed. They have over 350 million global visitors a monthly, according to Indeed's internal data, and they give you a ton of options. You can ditch all the busy work with scheduling, messaging, and managing all through Indeed itself. And Indeed doesn't just find you new hires faster, they find you the best possible options. 93% of employers agree Indeed matches them with the best candidates possible compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So jump in with Indeed today. Listeners of this podcast will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and show support to this show by letting them know we sent you over there from this podcast. That's Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. You need Indeed. And once you've done the hiring process, once you've figured all of that out, make sure you kick back with the official craft brew of DNVR Breckenridge Brewery. They have a beer for all occasions, dozens of different flavors, whether it be the Palisade Peach beer this time of year, or you can go with a classic like the Avalanche Amber. Whatever you might fancy, DNVR and a Breck Brew have a beer for you. So go check them out today. You can go to breckbrew.com and use their Breck Beer Locator online to find a beer near you. You can also check out a bunch of their different merch, which they have amazing stuff for their merch too. So do it, breckbrew.com. Go look up their beers, or just go to your local liquor store. They're in pretty much every liquor store in the country at this point. You'll be able to find some Breck Brew there and give it a try. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. My worst pick of this is the 2015 Chicago Cup. Their third cup in 5 years. Extremely uninteresting. Unless you root for the team that's the dynasty, you hate to see the team of the dynasty win. I think that's extremely straightforward. Not that they aren't a very good team, not that they didn't play very good hockey, but just not exciting to see that team go out and win their third cup when they already had two in the last couple of years. And if you'll remember in that run, it was them in LA swapping turns, winning cups. Boston did get one in there too, but that was before the last 10 years or so. Just not interesting when it's the same winners over and over and over again, and unless it's the team you actively root for. And then on top of that, you have all the stuff that came out about really their first cup. But looking back on that run for Chicago, it's a little bit tainted now too.
Yeah, and 15 was against first one is and 10 was against Philly.
And
yeah. 13
was Boston.
Yes. And 15 I'm having a blank on.
Tampa.
Tampa, yeah, that's where Tampa learned how to lose, right? How to win, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that was like the turn a little bit of their franchise. You know, Tampa obviously not winning till another 5 years, but still. Here's what I'll say. The one thing about the Chicago Blackhawks is they had their core. Kaner, right? Tays. They had Seabrook. They had, Duncan Keith, obviously. And kind of like the Avs, you know what I mean? Like 1.0 and the Avs 2.0. And, it's key guys, just elite players. It didn't really get much better than Tays and Kane, right? I mean, you had the captain serious and, straight and, two-way player. And then you had Kane, Patrick Kane, the electric gambler, a sniper, and didn't seem too worried. And Showtime, right? Give me the puck. I'm Showtime, So those guys, but you're right. It gets like, if you're not a fan, like you said, of the Blackhawks, if you're the Blackhawks, if you're CHGO and those guys, I mean, if it existed back then, it would have been sick. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh my God, it's, 3, and like you said, in 5 years, whatever it is. But yeah, as a fan, you might get a little bit like bored, but they did some good work on who to keep, right? Because every year they would lose someone, right? Whether it was Big Buff or, from year to year, they were coming back, and it just shows you how important your core is. It shows you how, McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar, Devon Tays, it's kind of like your Duncan Keith, so to speak, right? And it's like, it's so important. They even switch goalies, and look at the Avalanche, they've switched goalies. So it's very similar, And again, we talk about what the Avalanche are going to do here in the next 4 or 5 years, And you expect, that they will be back in there, And again, I agree with you in a sense that it's like, God, it gets a little bit repetitious a little bit, Yeah. When it's the same team, and you're right. I mean, LA was just swinging at it with them, and in the Western Conference, a little bit like Detroit Avs in the 90s, and mix it Dallas in there too, but we always forget about Dallas, but they were so freaking good as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we're not disagreeing. We're getting to be on the same page here, you and I, on those types of runs. And I just like, and again, this is off topic. It's not off topic. It's off that team. I just like when it's new. You know what I mean? When it's like, oh my God, it's their first time, or it's that like Paul Maurice. You know what I mean? Like, and when you go like this, it's like, okay, let's win it for who wasn't on our team. Who wasn't on our team again? And I know there was guys, and it's not fair for me to
Keemanen, I
say
think,
that.
was 2015 for
Yeah,
Chicago.
chemo. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know what I mean? But it's like it's cool, but it's cool when it's new for everybody. You know what I mean? And it's just like go back to 2022. You know,
I,
Gabe, Nate, everyone. I mean, it's crazy.
let me see if you stick to your guns here, because I know you're also Sidney Crosby's #1 fan. So,
Yeah.
how do you feel about those Pittsburgh Cups in 16 and 17?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I like the story too, and again, you hear it all the time from Wayne Gretzky when he talks about Edmonton, right back then in those days, how they walked by the Islanders' locker room, and they saw all the ice bags, and like, oh my god, this is what it takes to win, and even though they had got blown up by the Islanders, and it really resonated with them, and and they were back the next year, obviously winning 4 and 5. You know what I mean? But like people say that they've been there. You learn in those defeats. I mean, Florida Panthers last year,
Yep.
right? All of
Yep.
a sudden, probably helped them as much as you're absolutely pooping your pants. You know what I mean? Like in that series where right, it goes to 7, and you're like, I can't believe this is going to 7, right? But you probably take it from the year before, right? How you lost, and you don't want that feeling, and you knew somewhere somehow they were going to win, right? Because of probably that experience. So it goes back to my answer to your question about Pittsburgh is, remember they lost to Detroit, right? You know what I mean? And same thing, and all of a sudden you're learning your agony and defeat, and you're just like absolutely don't want, you want to get there, you know what it takes to get there, but you want to get over the hump, and I think guys like Crosby, they're special, and when you go with that team, and they got some adversity too, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
on I'm not sure which one we're talking about, but they're the back-to-backers. I mean, who not a lot of people have done back-to-back in the last, what is it, I mean, since was it Detroit in the early
Yeah.
2000? I mean, I got it right
I
here,
mean,
but
Tampa, then Pittsburgh, and then, yeah, I think it would
yeah,
have
yeah,
been
you're right.
Detroit.
Tampa again. I'm going back. I mean, God, those COVID ones,
Yeah,
but
in the
whatever.
mid 90s.
Yeah,
So,
so it's not something that's doable, as we all know, because of the short summers and the injuries you go through, and but
oh,
when you have the right leaders, right? Gino,
yep.
Sid, Flurry. All of a sudden, they got some adversity with Flurry. He's done. All of a sudden, it's Murray that goes in, and you know what I mean. And it didn't stop. You know what I mean. They can still win, just like Chicago switch goal or whatever it was. It was even Darling for a while, and you know what I mean. Like the first one was Antiniemi, and then it was Corey Crawford, and you know what I mean. So the Avs obviously will do the same thing with Kemper being gone now. So somebody else will be the guy that's winning cups for them. So hey, listen, in Pittsburgh, when you have a guy like freaking Crosby, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Everyone you've talked to, head coaches, assistant coaches, people that have like been there in management, teammates, like he's a special one. You know what I mean? And
Of course.
no wonder, that he's done it, and that's why I say this year. On a side note, there's no way this team is not gonna, you know what I mean, like try to compete. You know, I mean, I don't see a rebuild, so to speak, with a guy like that, or else he'd be gone by now. I think he just means so much to that franchise that I think they owe it to him to, like we said last year, they owe it to that team, the Avalanche, right? They were so good, and they made that trade deadline happen, which was masterful by CMAC and everyone. And I remember my comment was they owe it to that freaking core, to see it through this year, and then they did. They tried
Here's
everything up,
uh,
but it didn't work.
here's my thing with the Pittsburgh Cups. The 2016 one I thought was cool. You know, you mentioned some of the storylines. They also changed coaches mid-season, and that kind of turns things around for them. The other side of that, though, is 2016 they beat San Jose, which would have been San Jose's first cup. And I loved that San Jose team. Jumbo, one of my favorite players ever. They also had Joe Pavelski, who I know is blasphemy for an Avs person, but I really liked him. It was a really fun San Jose team that I wanted to see win. Obviously, they come up a little bit short. And then in 2017, Nashville. I care less about Nashville, but also would have been their first ever cup as a franchise, too. So it knocks it down a peg a little bit for me that they beat two teams where it could have been their first cup, where Pittsburgh already has a handful. I think that 2017 was their fourth or fifth. I forget.
Well, Mario had won two.
Yeah.
90, the two in early
Okay,
90s.
So fifth then, because Crosby won in 09 and then those
Three,
two.
yeah.
Okay. So there you go.
I mean, and again, Pittsburgh, I agree with you, like Nashville, San Jose, because it goes with the point I made earlier. It's fun when it's new, right? And it's like, but Pittsburgh, what a story too. You know what I mean? Like in those, I know we're going back to 09, like you said, but what a story. I mean, that franchise was an unbelievable franchise, and it just went down the drain. And Mario, retiring, and then he owed so much money, and then all of a sudden he gets part of the team, and then, they finally are able to, get the lottery and get a guy like Crosby. And the year before was Malkin. The year before was Fleury. I mean, God, we're talking about McKinnon, Rantanen, Makar. I mean, that's Landeskog. That, again, it's no secret, how to win. You need to draft those guys, and usually you draft those in top 10, right? Because they're special. They usually nobody's that great of a scout. You know what I mean? Where it's like, no one saw this one coming, but they picked this player at number 2 overall. I mean, hey, come on. It's like you got to have a little bit of suffer. You got to suffer a little bit in order to get those early picks, and then you make the right ones. And then, but if you go back to Pitt, like all of a sudden it's Mario hands over the keys to Sid, and you know what I mean, and Mario becomes the owner, and then they went at the old Igloo, which was an unbelievable building. Oh my God, the Igloo was awesome. I mean, it literally was an Igloo.
Save those stories for tomorrow.
but they were so awesome. I love that place. And then next thing you know, they got the new rink, and then they keep going and they keep winning, and it shows you what a core can do to a franchise. And obviously they had a special core in Pittsburgh.
Just maybe a tale for the Avalanche to follow a little bit here. That 09 Cup, it takes 7 years for them to get back and win that next Cup. So the Avs won in 22. 7 years would be 2029. So
yeah. It'll be before.
I hope you're right, but you never know. So just something to keep in mind from the Avs side of things. We can kind of just keep going in chronological order here, as that keeps it organized a little bit. 2018, the Washington Capitals. I thought this cup was super fun. Of the cups of the last 10 years, it's probably my third on my list. Avs being 1, and I think probably this most recent one being 2. But the Capitals, it was their first ever cup. They finally broke through. They were finally able to beat Pittsburgh in the second round. And then I think everyone, except for Vegas fans, enjoyed them beating Vegas in that cup final. So I know you were from Vegas at the time, so maybe you feel a little bit differently. But
yeah, you're right, though. But there's two sides, right, to every story all the time. And as much as it was exciting, like you said, I mean, is there a better touching moment than Oshie and his dad? You know what I mean? I'm sorry. I don't care if you know TJ Oshie, don't know him, like him as a player, don't like him. That moment is amazing. It just absolutely melts your heart, And then whether you like Ovechkin or not, I mean, like, he put on a clinic of partying after with a cup. I mean, this guy was legendary. I mean, and again, it's so amazing to see. It was genuine, like the pressure that those guys have. The guy's gonna, maybe eclipse Wayne as number 1 goal scorer of all time. So he is a legend, and the pressure that they have, those guys to be champions, and like, I'm sure you asked Joe Thornton, what's your biggest regret? It's got to be number 1. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't win a cup. I mean, it sucks. I mean, look at Ray. You know what I mean? It's 20 years, and if he doesn't make that move, then he doesn't get it, right? So there's a lot of great players that have never won. But I tell you, Ovechkin and all that stuff. But on a sidebar, that one, I was working for Vegas doing the TV for them that year, and it was a magical, unbelievable run. But my dad had retired, obviously, and he was living in Vegas. And you know what? Him and his buddies, they became season ticket holders, and they would go to every game. And my dad was having a Shake Shack right there on the concourse, and sit there as a fan and complain a little bit about the trades, no trades. George has got to do this, and all the above. And we had moved back to Denver, and Max, my oldest at the time, was flying in for every freaking home game. My dad would meet him at the airport, and it was an unbelievable run. I mean, that city was taken. It was amazing. And then to come down crashing at the end, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, I don't know. Imagine Dragons sang like the national anthem before game 2, and they never won a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
After that,
well,
so a lot of
that's
people
why they
blame
lost.
Imagine
Yeah.
Dragons. But yeah, if you're a Vegas fan, it was crushing. If you were, and again, Vegas had done an unbelievable freaking expansion draft. I mean, I don't care what people say, like, "Oh my god," hey, it was masterful. We could have a show one day on that. It was amazing what they did. So even if you hate them or like them, but anyway. But if you're a Wash, it was awesome. Like I said, it's Alex Ovechkin finally raising the cup, and it's great to see the greats of the game. You know, like McDavid one day,
Yeah.
might win it, might not, but those are awesome images.
Always is. Make sure when you're watching your team win the cup, you got some Raising Cane's chicken fingers on your table. Go get with Raising Cane's today. Get in, make a pit stop with them. Get their craveable hand-battered chicken fingers, cooked to order and made just for you. Obviously, look, their chicken fingers are really good. Go get them. You could put their sauce on cardboard, and I'd probably eat it. So you'll go get the sauce as well. When you get your chicken fingers, you get your crinkle-cut fries, you get your buttery Texas toast, and you can also get coleslaw if you're a coleslaw person. I'm not, but they have good coleslaw if you're a coleslaw person. So jump on it. Find your local Raising Cane's location, and you can even order online if you want to get your order turbocharged and get there even faster. Order it online. Come pick it up. RaisingCanes.com or through their mobile app. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, one love. And once you got your chicken fingers on your table, make sure you're booking your next sporting event so you don't miss it. You want to go see it in person. Do it with Game Time. What time is it, Eric?
Game time.
Yes. Thank you. Game Time, of course, you can see all of your seats for any potential event you might be going for, and you can see the view from that location. On top of that, Game Time guarantees you the lowest ticket prices of anywhere, to the point where if you find ticket prices cheaper somewhere else, they'll reimburse your account 110% of the ticket price. And the coolest part is when you download the app and use code DNVR to sign up today, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. So go get yourself $20 off a ticket, whether it be sports, whether it be the theater, concerts, you name it. Game Time has tickets to everything. Over 15 million people use Game Time to get their tickets. So go join them today with the link down in the description and get on that Game Time app. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. I want to take a quick side note here because it's the middle of August and we can do whatever we want. Eric, best player to never win a cup. Do you already mention Jumbo? Aginla's got to be on there. You probably have some older ones than I do, though.
God, I'm trying to think here. I mean, I always go back to Thornton if I'm talking to someone. It's a great question, right? And there's always, and then there's those near misses, right? Like I said, Ray. What I mean by misses, like, oh, he almost missed.
He got there.
And then there's guys like if you're going to go a bit older too, not older, but guys like Mike Gartner, unbelievable players. Gartz has got 600 goals, and all of a sudden, he's on a Ranger team, and then you get traded at the deadline, and then they freaking win. It's just like crushing. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, oh my God, Mike Gartner just missed winning the Stanley Cup with the Rangers. I feel for guys like that all the time. I mean, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of guys like. And that's where the Hall of Fame is getting away a little bit, which is nice. You know what I mean? Like the Ronix or Turgeons or, guys that never won, you know what I mean? Where before that it was like, oh, he's never won, he's not getting in. You know what I mean? I feel that they're softened up a little bit.
Jumbo's
because so many
in
good
for sure.
players. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like Iginla, Jumbo. You're bang on with those. I mean, Pavelski, you said earlier. I mean, how do you not like Joe Pavelski? I don't care if you're an Avs fan or not. Like, class act, unbelievable player. And it's like, last year it's like, oh, it probably looks like his last shot at the can, and you know how hard it is to win, and you're like, oh my God, you'll never do it. You know what I mean? He'll never win. There's Mark Recchi's of the world. Oh, he won actually, but there's so many players that play a long time that put up sick numbers and they never win.
I got a list here for you. Bure, Dion, and a couple of goalies. I guess technically Luongo has won one now as a front office guy. But
that's awesome. Yeah,
Lundqvist never won one.
Yeah.
Lindros, unless he just injuries more than a really long career without winning one in his case. But Sundin also never won one. So there's a handful of guys on that list.
Oh
But
yeah, I mean it's hard to win. Listen, you feel for those guys when they retire. You can tell they're just missing that one thing, and some guys keep playing for that reason, right? Because they might have retired, and then they're like, I got to keep pushing for it. I got to. It's such a beautiful trophy. I know we're biased, but it's by far the best trophy in pro sports. By far, one the toughest trophy to win, but the most beautiful one. And it's I don't know. You could be not even a hockey fan. You see that thing, people are like, "Oh, that's the Stanley Cup." You know what I mean? Like that's
yep.
pretty cool. It's known for recognized for hockey, and it's such a amazing thing. And I've never won it. Obviously, I've been next to it many times. I've never won it, but every time you see it, you get intimidated by it. You know what I mean? And you can see the ones that have won it that then they feel good about it because they're like, oh, good to see you again. You know what I mean? And it's like, but if you've never won it, it's like it's a little intimidating. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh God, because that's why you get ready every summer and get ready every season is to go win that thing. If not, you're in the wrong sport, you're in the wrong business. But it should be about winning cups, right? And that's what team sports are about. And yeah, I mean, man, but I feel for those guys, like you said, Jumbo, and oh my lord,
Yep.
man, oh man, they've had amazing careers, but it just makes a little bit of a little ice cream, a little cherry on the top of the sundae, right? You know what I mean? Like, oh, all right, this is kind of awesome.
All right, back into our list. 2019, St. Louis wins it over Boston. Their first Stanley Cup. And I know people are going to be mad at this, but I actually enjoyed this one in the year that it happened. We didn't really know Binnington was such a shithead back then. St. Louis didn't have all of the things that went down against Colorado over the next handful of years in the playoffs and things like that. So seeing St. Louis get their first, I enjoyed. And as much as Eric likes the East Coast, anytime Boston can lose a championship, I'm here for it. So
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Like it's you feel bad, for the guys and with the Bruin crest in front of their jersey, and our buddy, their friend of the show. I felt bad for my buddy Joe Sacco, ex Avalanche coach. And it was like he had the big Grizzly Adams beard, and what I mean, like he was ready to rock, and you come that close, what I mean, to lose. It's heartbreaking, and it's just like devastating, and it's so hard, and you never know, as when you a guy like Joe that's played for a long time, coached for a long time, and it's that's the only time he's been there, for example. You know what I mean? So it's not like it's not automatic. I think when you're young, I think Sagan said that one when he was there for the Cup year, and was it 2010? Is it Bruins? Is it 2010 or 11? Whatever. But again, he's a young player, and then next thing you know, you assume you'll get back there every year. You know what I mean? And then never has gone back until whatever that maybe that
yeah.
whatever you call that bubble or whatever it was there. But other than that, like he's never been back there. So
True.
if you're St. Louis, I love the story that year. I love turnaround stories like that. They are dead in the water in freaking December,
Yeah,
January.
January 6th or something. I think it was like they're last in the league. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And then, Craig Berube comes in. He's a people person. Like he's a rah-rah guy. He gathers the guys. And then you got guys like Ryan that did a tremendous job, right? O'Reilly. And Jordan Binnington gets called up. And, I mean, I don't think Craig wants to even play him. He's there for a couple weeks. He's not even playing. And then Husso gets hurt, and then all of a sudden they're like, all right, we'll just put this guy in. Like they don't want to put him in, and they go on a magical run. And Jordan Binnington now is going to be Team Canada's goalie at the Olympics. So never looked back, had that opportunity, waited for it, like Jordan or not. You know what I mean? Like he did an unbelievable job, waited for his opportunity, fought for it, and then he just jumped on it. And then they rally behind that. There's always something, right? There's always something. And them, it was that one night, I don't know where they were on the road, and the song Gloria went on, and Gloria, Gloria, you know what I mean? Like all that
Yeah.
stuff. And all of a sudden they start believing, and coach just puts the belief system in them, and they go an amazing run. They do. I mean, it's just like, it is phenomenal. And again, was that a team that there was, again, with a core, that they were going to repeat 3-4 times? Probably not. It's probably, with looking back, they're a little built differently, and it was more, they just went on a freaking run, and AJ hates them. And if AJ's listening right now, he'll be pissed that we're talking about them. But it was it's the worst team that ever freaking won, whatever. But they were awesome, and it just shows you what momentum can do, what belief can do. And it was kind of fun. And sometimes you just take something like a stupid song, you know what I mean, and you rally behind it. The whole city rallied behind it. Red Hall sure rallied behind it, when alumni wise.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God. And then they went Blues, we went Blues. Anyway, it was kind of phenomenal. It was a great storyline, and it was fun to watch, but then you feel the agony on the other side, right? Like you said, it's always something, and you feel so bad for the other team that works so hard to get there, and all that for nothing. You know what I mean? And when I say nothing, it's, you don't talk about who lost, you talk about who won. So that's why it's hard.
Wouldn't know about that in Colorado. They always win when they go to the Cup final. So
That's right.
Only team in the NHL to do it. One of my favorite fun facts.
True.
Every other team that's been to a Cup final has lost at least one Cup final. So,
Not our Avs.
Nope. Then I'm curious your thoughts on this one, because I really didn't enjoy the Vegas Cup win. Obviously fans have made plenty of light of their salary cap shenanigans and other shit. While I did not find that Cup run particularly fun, I did not enjoy it all that much. I do think there is something to be said about making a villain of the league, right? Vegas winning, I think, cemented their status as a hated team in the NHL, at least in this modern era. And I think that's a good thing for the league. I think fans need something to attach to, someone that they can hate, some team that they can say, oh, these are the guys we got to take down. So while that particular Cup run wasn't that fun, I think it did set up for a lot of interesting stuff going forward. Them going out in the first round this last year, all of this other stuff where it feels entertaining because everyone's rooting against them.
Yeah, and everyone's rooted against them since day one, right? Because everyone was like, "Oh God, the expansion draft was made for them." Again, like we could have a show on this. I mean, man, oh man, was that masterful what they did. And it was different than Columbus and Minnesota, and I mean, like those rules. But obviously the expansion rules were different. But oh man, they did an unbelievable job. And then everybody hated them because of that, because of doing their job. And then they became the villain. Like AJ always says, you need villains, and they've been the perfect villain the last few years in the NHL. There's no other team that's come close to them in my book, and then they go, and then, they almost win that first year, and then they go back years later, and, the owner had said, we're going to win in the first 6 years, and, what I mean, and then they end up winning on that year 6, and there's a lot of storylines there. What they have, 4 goalies that
Four,
year,
think, yeah.
4, it's crazy. And then, Aiden Hill becomes the guy, and then there's the Jack Eichel saga, with Buffalo, and then he ends up there, and then he shows that he is a bona fide number 1 centerman that could carry you in the playoffs, and he was superb in the playoffs, and then everyone just absolutely hated the fact that all of a sudden Vegas won. They were Stanley Cup champions. But the one thing, if you like Vegas or not, they're pretty ballsy, whether you think it's fair what they're doing or not. I mean, again, it's all within the specs of the rule. I mean, we're not here to discuss but is that really going around? I mean, I'm sure it is, but I'm saying it's not illegal. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you gotta give them their props too. They've been ballsy, and again, it didn't work last year, and that might bite you in the ass. You know what I mean? For a bit after, once you start making moves like that, but. I mean, the fact that they went for it, the fact that they weren't afraid to piss the fan base off too with popular players, and you know what I mean, and going after the shiny toy every year, from all the way from Mark Stone to, they just kept going. Martinez, Eichel. It just seemed like all the time they were trying to get that new toy, new toy. Robin Leonard, screw you there, freaking Marc-Andre Fleury. You know what I mean? There was never feelings like personal feelings. They went for it. You know what I mean, in their mind, and it paid off. So, of course, if you were a Vegas fan, it was something magical, and if you're the rest of the league or fans of the league, then you were PO'd for a while, right? Because you're like, gosh darn it, those guys did it. You know what I mean? Again, the villains were born before that, but they certainly kept, their reputation with that word for a while now, even to this day.
So I think that mostly rounds out our list. I think we had the Avs, Florida, and Washington kind of near the top, a bunch of ones in the middle, and then most of the repeat championships near the bottom there. So the list itself, you like whatever ones you like. I don't actually care if you enjoyed this one or that one. Stanley Cup hockey's dope. Even the least fun one is still Stanley Cup hockey. So enjoy it. I did want to ask you this, Eric. When does the Stanley Cup magic run out? Because I look at these last handful of winners. Florida Panthers just won. You bet your ass players want to play there right now. Vegas won 2 years ago. Vegas is a little bit of a weird one, but players want to play there. The Avs, certainly players want to play here in Colorado. Tampa Bay, previous years, I think players definitely wanted to play for Tampa Bay. Is that starting to wane a little bit? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think anyone really wants to play in St. Louis right now. And I don't think there's a lot of people clamoring to play in Washington either. So does you have a 5-year window after your cup of people wanting to play for you, or is it more? Is it less? Does it depend on other things?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It is shiny, and I've said it before on the show. Like, I think as a player, you win. I do believe that. I've believed that for a long time when I was playing, before I was playing. If you're a player and you win, I always said it adds 5. Again, forget about a superstar. I'm talking about non-superstar. Adds 5 years to your career. It just does. Yeah. People want winners, and you're right. It's the shiny. It's the shine, right? It's the reputation that he's a winner. He was part of a winning team, and the question, which is a brilliant question by you, is like, when does the shine really goes to rust, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, if all the teams you just talked about. And it just hit me as you were saying it. I think it's just all related to their core. I think players want to play. For example, like the Avalanche, it's still shiny because you're going to sign here because you're going to play with Makar, you're going to play with McKinnon, you're going to play with Rantanen. And like, why would you want to come here? Just think of Joe Druin last year, right, Jonathan? Yeah. It's the same thing for Tampa. Their core's been there the last few. Kucherov, Stamkos. I mean, Hedman. Vasilevsky and net. I mean, so the shine was always there. Vegas, I mean, it's the same thing. They got Eichel. They have an unbelievable. They're treated well. It is exciting. They are the villains. But you go back to Washington, then their core kind of was like Ovechkin and surrounding guys. Backstrom being there, but then all of a sudden he's got issues and he retires. So it's like quickly your core goes down. I just feel, I'm a big believer, that as superstars in core, and so all of a sudden your core is not the greatest, then all of a sudden your team will just go down the shits, and it does. And then players are like, well, I'm not going there. You know what I mean? Like, well, why would I want to go there? So, and it's the same thing. St. Louis was built a little differently. You know what I mean? They were more like,
you can say they weren't any good. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't want to make AJ right, so that's it. But I just want to, they were more built on momentum and passion, and what I mean, and balls. You know what I mean? It was awesome. But it wasn't so much of like, oh, they have a Makar, they have a Rantanen, and then you're gonna say, well, Peter Angelo, and I forgot about the shiny toy Peter Angelo to Vegas too. But earlier when I was talking about Vegas, but yeah, I think it relates to your core. I really, really believe that if your core is like young and signed for years and not leaving, and you're going to attract people, of course, with your cup included, you're going to attract like those good players that want to, go for it. Just look at Jeff Skinner, for example, gets bought out. He's got over 1,000 games. Has never played one single freaking playoff game.
Yeah.
So you get bought out, then you sign your deal, and you could go a lot of places. I'm assuming, and you pick Edmonton because you're thinking you're betting on Draisaitl, you're betting on McDavid, and that's what you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? Like because, well, first of all, you're on a 1 year deal now. You don't have that security. But again, I think Skinner's made over 100 million in his career, so it's not that. But it's about you want to win, right? Do you want to
Yep.
win? Do you want to go down as again, one of those players earlier you asked about for older people in the chat, like Phil Housley. You know what I mean? Like he's a Hall of Famer. He's a guy only really got out of the first round like a couple times and very very low amounts of playoff games. You know what I mean? Compared to their 11, 12, 1,300 games played. So it is tough, but it is shiny. It's shiny if your players are shiny. If your core is
Sure.
shiny, then it can stay shiny for a bit longer than most teams. So the Avs are in good shape.
Yeah. Avs are definitely looking good in that regard. At the same time, and I know like the big difference here is age, right? But you look at someone like Pittsburgh, they still have Crosby and Malkin. They're not young anymore, but they're still putting up ridiculous point totals doing things like that, and they're a team that just missed the playoffs.
You're right.
Do people
But
not
then
want to
again,
play with
they're-
Crosby? Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's been a little bit of it's been a little unstable there, right? It starts
For
at
sure.
the top, right?
Yep.
And obviously Mario and his group sold the team, right? To
Yep.
is it the Boston group, right? The Red Sox group, and then
Yeah, I think so.
I know Mario's still involved and all that stuff, but then all of a sudden, like there's a little bit of a shakeup there. But no one has played. I think. Let me correct me if I'm wrong, but Letang, Malkin, and Crosby, I think, as a threesome of the
Yeah.
most like games played
Games.
together, right?
Yep,
You know what I mean?
I think so.
Uh, Now Sid's been on. I mean, Gino's had his moments the last few years, right, where it's hasn't been as shiny as
Yeah, for sure.
as it once was, and I'm a fan of his. So, but and Letang is just a freak of nature, for the record. Like this guy's like he's a workout machine, and but we all know he had some health issues, right, the last few years, and like some dangerous stuff, not just like a broken ankle or whatever it was, but it was some crazy stuff. So again, you're right. Maybe I would have expected that team to do a little bit more damage. You know what I mean? The last 5, 6, 7 years, and we all know that hasn't been very good lately. But even before that, you would have thought they would have gone a little bit deeper with that core, and maybe it goes against a little bit what I was saying earlier with the cores, but especially with the guy that I really, really admire in Crosby. So, but you're right. I mean, it's you know, uh, it's something that you can look into and nitpick a little more why they didn't have enough, but it's so intriguing. It's so intriguing. And if I'm looking, no, go ahead. Go ahead. No,
I'm going
go.
to ask a different question. So,
Yeah, no, I was just looking at the 2022 was stress free, 16-4. Like
yeah.
I don't know if it was stress free, but it sure was stress free when it comes down to W's and losses.
Yeah,
right? So
for sure.
it's a good point by him.
Yeah, I wanted to flip this question on its head a little bit pertaining to today's news with Winnipeg finally trading Rucker McGroarty. McGroarty, a long list of guys who have not wanted to play in Winnipeg. How do you fix that? If you're the Winnipeg Jets, how do you get people to want to play in your city?
Yeah, I feel bad. I really do. You're dealing with that a little bit in Calgary the last few years.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Right,
Gaudreau,
Johnny,
Tkachuk,
Johnny
yeah.
Hockey, and Matthew. Johnny becoming a free agent, Matthew about to become a free agent,
Yeah.
saying I'm not going to re-sign here. Noah Hannafin doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Alec
Markstrom just got
Tkachuk.
dished too. Yeah.
Yeah, Markstrom. More like okay, I'm mad, and I think somewhere somehow it cost Brad his job there, and then Conroy's now in there, and I think they've made uh, uh, they've come out of their way to say they want to get guys that want to play there, right?
Sure.
And that's why they extended the guy they got for Toffoli there that scored 30, Sarangovic, right? And then all of a sudden they extended him, 6 years, 7 years, whatever it was, because they're saying the main point right away. Connie was saying, oh, he wants to be a Calgary Flame. And hey, listen, you saw it in Columbus this week with Patrick Laine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The first thing they said was he doesn't want to be a Columbus Blue Jacket, right? So then all of a sudden you find the right taker and you move on. Um, so that's one thing. And Johnny Hockey, obviously he's in Columbus too, but it's just I don't know. How do we say his name? McGorty. Like obviously
McGroarty, yeah.
made it known to the team that he didn't want to be, a Winnipeg Jet. So I think Chev and those guys, Cheval Day off, and those guys got to do what you got to do and move on. And it kind of sucks sometimes. And then what it does is, here's what it does to a team like a franchise like that too, is it makes you go back, and when you draft guys, you got to draft differently a little bit. It's a little bit like college recruiting too. A lot of schools will stay away from some of those guys because they're like, you know what, they're going to go to NODAC or DU, or I'm not going to waste my time. I'm going to recruit differently.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe the Winnipeg Jets, and I'm not saying bashing on the city, I'm saying for whatever reason it's got a bad rap, and and there's been a lot of players that love playing there. Actually, Matthew Tkachuk, dad being one, absolutely loved playing in Winnipeg. So, it's just it's a question of, I don't know. You know me, what I think about dictating where you're going. You're playing hockey the way it is, the way the rules are. You're drafted somewhere, and this is where you go, and this is what you do. But I guess the league is changing a little bit that way, and that's fine. They can do what they want. That doesn't mean that this is what I would do. But I respect that he didn't want to be there, but I also respect Chevy and the crew in Winnipeg by doing, all right, well, we're going to do what we need to do now because we want players that want to wear our sweater. You know what I mean? And Cutter Gauthier with Philly, I thought they did a great job last year, Danny and those guys and Jonesy. And it is what it is. And sometimes we don't have all the info, and you're like, well, what is the real story? But at the end of the day, the guy doesn't want to play there. For whatever the reason is, he doesn't want to play there. So you got to cut your losses and move on before it's too late.
Yeah, I do think it's an interesting conversation. You look at something like the Gauthier situation, and it's like, all right, if one player doesn't want to play for your organization, that's more of a one-off thing, that player's own personal whatever. But when you look at some of these other teams like Calgary or Winnipeg or even Columbus, where it's like, all right, now you're talking about 3, 4, 5, 6 guys want out of this city, that's when it's like, okay, what's actually going on here? What's the problem with this city or with this team, or how do they fix whatever this issue is that has players leaving? I don't have a great answer for you in some cases.
Yeah, me neither, yeah. But I'm with you. Is it the Canadian border? Is it, I don't know. Is it the weather, the climate, the management? Sometimes it's the management. Yeah. They don't want to play for that management. So who knows what it is. But, and again, then Buffalo's been, a lot of turnover, the last 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. So maybe
there's definitely some management issues along the way in Buffalo. That I know for sure.
Yeah. I agree.
But who knows? You can always turn it around. That's the beauty of sports. It takes one good year, and all of a sudden, everybody wants to play for you again. So,
absolutely, and it's okay. I mean, you'll see Columbus. They'll have a little more stability this year. I think Donnie Waddell and then Dean Evison, and and they got Monahan, guys that are, guys that they're good people. They're good players, and you'll have a little bit more a respectable season out of those guys and get it back on track. Not that they've ever won cups or ever been at the top of the league, but once upon a time they were a decent franchise. Torts had some decent teams there, and I think that it's time for them too to turn this thing around. And
that's what you guys said last year.
I know. I know. Okay, this year it is. No, it's my Sabres. Yeah. Sabres year this year, Or Ottawa. Put Ottawa in there, too.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we could wrap up today's show. We will be back tomorrow. We're doing a Q&A with Eric. We're asking him all of his professional experience questions, fun stories, stuff like that. There's a tweet out from DNVR Avalanche. Go reply to that with your questions or tag me in the DNVR Discord to get your questions answered by Eric tomorrow. So it should be a fun show. Hopefully you'll join us for that. We are out of here for today, and we will talk to you on the next one.
We all silly like the mayor.